joining the conversation, use hashtag PL Tonight. Mac has joined us. What a pleasure to commentate on that game of football.
Yeah, it was a really nice game of football, wasn't it? Good quality, really good tempo, goals, great play. Really enjoyed it today.
Good. All right. There's lots to talk about, but let's just go through the headlines from the day. And Rio, during that break, was like, do we have to talk about Manchester United again? Sadly, we are going to, in detail. If you're a United fan, get in touch.
Can't say nothing in here no more, can you?
There's plenty you do say that I don't share with people at home, trust me. More misery. Jose Mourinho, that sort of picture sums up how he looked most of the game, actually. A very unhappy man. Another bad result for Manchester United. Meanwhile, the Emery effect. Is he really starting to make a difference at Arsenal? 5 on the bounce for them. Played really well today. Congratulations to them for the win. And finally, we've just seen it here, haven't we, at Stamford Bridge. The Sturridge Stunner. What a fantastic goal from him. Lots to talk about, but we're going to start by reflecting on the game that we've just seen. And here are a couple of fans who, as they left the ground, gave us these messages. They sent them in to us. Have a listen.
Just leaving the bridge now. Unbelievable attacking game. Thought both teams played great. Kante and Rudiger, unbelievable. Hazard, as usual, unplayable. You know, before the season, people thinking we couldn't get the top 4. I think with Hazard in this form, anything's possible. I think we're definitely title contenders. And how well we've started under Sarri has been unbelievable. Jorginho ticking all the boxes. Really disappointed about the last-minute goal. We should have closed down Sturridge, but it was an unbelievable strike. All in all, great game. Shame about the draw, but I think things are looking great for us going forward.
What an equaliser from Daniel Sturridge, of all people, at his old ground. Just an absolute wonderful effort with a curling effort. We couldn't believe it. You know, as much as we had the pressure on them second half, I actually never thought we'd score, but Sturridge, of all people, comes up trumps. And it's a point. Could have been 3 on the balance of play, but I think probably just about a fair result. But we've just got to be delighted. A, the fact we've got a point. B, that Daniel Sturridge came off the bench and made such a big impact. We're still unbeaten, and we're right up there. We really are right up there.
Look, Steve, before you joined us and before Premier League Tonight started, we were reflecting at the back end of the Premier League show about the change at Chelsea. You know, Sarri's only been here for a couple of months. Jurgen Klopp's had 4 years to work on his project, but you can straight away see the difference that Sarri has made. When you were all players, how difficult or otherwise is it to adapt to different styles? I mean, I don't know, when you went out to Spain, having been at Liverpool for so long, how long did it take you to kind of work out what your managers wanted from you?
It didn't take me long, to be honest.
No.
But I was playing for 2 football teams that had the same type of ethos. You know, when I was at Liverpool and then when I went to Madrid, we had 2 sides who needed to entertain, who had to please the fans. And it was exactly the same when I went to Spain. I think the thing about adapting was trying to learn the language, trying to be in certain positions, trying to know where your right back is or your left back is if you play in a certain position. But I think good players like Chelsea have done adapt quite easily. I mean, we're not talking about players who can't play football here. We're talking about players who won the title a couple of years ago, struggled last year. So when there's a chance of a manager who's forward-thinking and wants to go forward and wants to entertain, these type of players will jump at that opportunity. And I think it comes really easy to them. As Rio said before, as I was listening, the biggest thing for me was the performance when we were last year against Arsenal, where they looked very shaky at the back. They looked good going forwards, but they were shaky at the back. Where today, I mean, I was with Rio. I thought David Luiz and Rudiger were great. I thought David Luiz was man of the match. I thought he was excellent today. And as long as they keep that strength up here mentally and don't go wondering and don't start thinking and looking at the pigeons up in the sky, they could go a long way, Chelsea.
It does. I think they've got the makings of a great relationship. But I do really believe that the fullbacks are going to play a huge part in whether that relationship stays at a level we saw today. I think the closer that the 2 fullbacks are to these centre-backs, the better they will perform.
OK, Jack Robinson has just sent a message. I've not seen Chelsea play this beautifully in my lifetime. Scolari tried because we had world-class footballers in every position, but Sarri is phenomenal. Ryan says Sarri's been at Chelsea just over 2 months. You can already see his philosophy being implemented into his players. Meanwhile, at Old Trafford, Mourinho has been there for 2 years and we still look clueless. And Dharma says football needs more managers like Klopp, Sarri and Pep, and a lot less like Mourinho. But we'll talk about Manchester United in the third part of the programme. But after the break, we're joined by viewers live on Twitter, live on Facebook, and we're going to be talking about the importance of captaincy in the modern game in the week that Jose took the vice-captaincy off Paul Pogba. This evening's Premier League Tonight, we just had David Luiz join us live from the tunnel. He confirmed if Conte had stayed at Chelsea, he would for sure have left the club, were his words to us. Every single Saturday we sit here, we talk about football for an hour between 8 and 9. If you've not seen the show before, We'll spend the next few minutes giving you a little bit of an insight into what it's all about, particularly those who've just joined us on Twitter and Facebook. You're more than welcome. Use the hashtag PL Tonight to join in the debate, join in the conversation. We're going to be talking about the importance of captaincy in the modern game, and we're going to start with a question from one of our fan pundits. This is Adam.
So after Lloris's drink-driving antics, he kept his captaincy. Paul Pogba is stripped of the vice-captaincy after his performances, and maybe more so what he has said in the press recently. And what do you guys think about the whole captain situation at the moment? Captaincies has changed a lot since the likes of Robson, Keane, etc. But what kind of role did it have, and how would you have felt as a player if you were stripped of the captaincy or the vice-captaincy, as it's been in Paul Pogba's case?
It was an interesting decision by Jose, wasn't it, to choose to do that, not fine him, not drop him, to publicly take something away?
Yeah, it was a big decision because obviously he would have known the attention that would have got. But I think the difference, answering his question there, the difference between the captains of today and yesteryear is that I think we've got more captains now that lead by example. We haven't got talkers. We haven't got shouters and people that are going to grab people and demand from people physically and verbally. It's more they're going to lead by the example. And I don't think there's a particular right way and a wrong way. It's just, you have to have an influence on the other members of your squad. Whatever way you're going to do it, you have to have an influence. And at the moment, I don't see. Sometimes though, there needs to be someone in that change room, whether it's the captain or not. I think the best change rooms is when you've got a few leaders in there, when things aren't going well, and there's someone who can come in there and drag people about, and it might not even be the man wearing the armband. And that's when you get more of a unity within the squad.
Yeah, I agree. It might even be a substitute at times who's not even taking part in the game but can see different things. I think you have to be. You might have people who are very vocal. You might have you rightly said. I think with the Premier League's changed from, in the last 10, 15 years, more foreign players have come over. So therefore, the influence in the dressing room is probably diluted. It used to be certainly when I played, or maybe when Rio played, there was a nucleus of maybe Manchester lads or Liverpool lads, and they were the more vocal. But, I played in a great Liverpool side earlier on who had title winners in it, and it was John Barnes who may be the captain, but he wouldn't be a huge, big motivator. Yeah. But when he went out on the pitch, he was magnificent, and you thought that's what you wanted. With Roy Keane, he was a great player and a shouter as well. But I think sometimes it takes all sorts of, at England it was Tony Adams, and he was a big, heart-thumping, chest-thumping, come on boys, let's run through that brick wall. And it takes all sorts. The main thing is that you want to do it yourself. You're professional enough, not necessarily to need all that. You just want to go out and win anyway, at all costs.
I think to answer some of the questions as well, the Pogba scenario, well, there's been a breakdown of trust. And when you are captain of a football club, you are the kind of the go-between between the manager and the players. Yeah. You are the foil, regardless of whatever it was. Even when I was captain at Tottenham, a lot of my role sometimes with the younger players was getting a feel for. Some of them were homesick at times, and I'm speaking to the the manager or the coach saying, you might need to look after him, you might need to have a look at this and that, and that relationship's completely gone, obviously, between Jose and Paul Pogba, and it's strictly a footballing relationship now, because the trust is not there. With the Lloris situation, I personally don't care what you do in your private life. For you,
it's about setting an example, though, is it not?
Listen, what I wanted as a player, right? Don't get me wrong. From the outside world, I get it. It was a poor example that Hugo Lloris has set, and he will do what he needs to do to put that right. What I care about is what happens on that football pitch. What happens within my dressing room? Does he make sure that we're prepared right? Is he, is he the right man for the job to make sure that when we walk out of that tunnel, I can win at the weekend? And that for me matters more than whatever he's doing in his own personal life, which was wrong. Don't get me, it was wrong. But that's for the club to deal with. If he's good as a captain, then I would still want him to be my captain, even what happened to him.
Really?
Yeah.
Looking back on the captains that you had, whether it was, at West Ham, you would have had the likes of Potts or Julian Dix or something, and then you went to Leeds with Radaby, and then it was Keane and Neville at United. Who stands out as the sort of ultimate example of what a captain should be?
There wasn't really one particular one, if I'm honest. Really? They all had their different traits, but I look at Roy Keane. His powers are on the decline probably as a player, as an individual. But it was more of his influence, what he demanded of people, whether it be in a training ground, on the training pitch, in the game in the 90 minutes or within the hotel.
And was he not
Work ethic.
divisive along that? Did he unite the players?
Yeah, but I felt at points there were times when there were some players that would maybe go into their shell because he was so demanding and so forceful, but then there were some players that would get more out of him. I was probably one of them that I'd go, okay, I'm going to show you if he shouted at me, or I'd have an argue back, but we'd get to a place where he got what he wanted. But I think that a great captain gets the best out of individuals within that squad. He gets the best out of individuals and a collective, and he influences whether it be by force or by the way he plays. And whatever way you do it is great for a football club. I said shouters or quiet people, just influence your teammates for the better.
Just get a response off your teammates. And, you know, Roy Keane probably went over the top at times, but as you said, he's just waiting for that response that I'm going to prove you wrong. And the fact that he was a serial winner shows that he must have been doing something right.
What was it like when you went over to Spain? What was their opinion of captains compared to ours?
Different. The Spanish were the captains.
Right.
It was the person who's been in the dressing room the longest was the captain. It was as easy as that. It was he's a shouter. And when I went, it was Manolo Sanchez. And then when he retired, it quickly went on to Fernando Hierro.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a huge shouter. But in that 5 or 10 minutes before we went out into the pitch, he was the most vocal one. He was the one who was rallying the team. The manager was sitting in his own little cubicle out the way, never said anything to the manager. It was up to the players to get themselves ready for the game. And then when Fernando Hierro retired, or left Madrid in the unfortunate circumstance he did, Raúl took over the captaincy. And again, he's a different character, and he wasn't very, very vocal at all, but he'd been there then the longest as well. So it just got passed on from game to game to game. And now it's Sergio Ramos.
If you'd have stayed there forever, would you have ever got it? Or
well, I was captain at various times for Real Madrid, And it was because, at various times you played, I was captain for Liverpool as well, Jake.
You'll be telling us you're man of the match in a Champions League final in a minute.
Scored a goal in the Champions League final.
Loads of messages coming in on social. Will, I can see at the bottom of the screen there on Facebook, looking at the likes of Cahill and Henderson, does it matter if your captain doesn't play every week? I wonder if it diminishes the captain's powers among the lads. They're thinking, why are you telling me what to do? You're not even in the squad. You're not playing, no?
No, because, it's a bit like what Maka was saying. It's based on their longevity at the club, a lot of it, what they've achieved. For someone like Gary Cahill, who's been here for so long, achieved so much, so of course he's going to have that level of respect, even if he's not playing.
What was it like for you when you were 18 and you were made captain at Forest? Was that something that you actively sort of sought and went after, or did it just come your way?
It just came my way. I mean, I look back now and I just think, well, it's probably a way of just adding a few more zeros onto the price tag, to be honest with you.
It worked?
Yeah, it did work, but... I was captain at youth level, my whole career of England sides and my youth team. So it was just a natural progression. I did it when I went to when I was 18 at Forest, when I was 20 years old or 21 at Newcastle United. I don't know. I enjoyed it. I always enjoyed, I suppose, the responsibility and that it put on my shoulders going out onto the pitch. And I was a different type of captain. I was one of those that I felt like I wanted to go out there and just perform and lead by, example, rather than be screaming and shouting. When you're young, it's very difficult. It's very difficult because you're not experienced enough to kind of see the game, step back actually, and kind of see the game in a different way and almost play that managerial role. You're so focused on yourself and trying to get through the game. So as I got older, I found it easier.
Just going back to the Pogba point about a captain. I saw a clip on social media with Pogba when he was in the French squad. He wasn't wearing the armband, but the rousing speech that he gave before they went out or at half-time was that of a captain. That was someone who's standing up, taking responsibility and a leader. Someone who wants to lead that team and says, I'm taking responsibility now. I'm going to shout. I'm going to tell you guys what this means. And they went out and won the World Cup. Whether that was the catalyst to win the World Cup or not, he done it and everyone was tuned in that changing room because you could have heard a pin drop, it seemed, in that changing room. So to say he's not a leader or doesn't have the credentials to be a leader, I think is wrong for Pogba. It's just that when you're not performing how you want to perform sometimes, and when the manager seems to have lost trust in you, in that sense, it's difficult for you then to be able to go out there and portray yourself as a leader. So the Man United situation probably is a hindrance. And I think at the moment, Pogba probably just needs to play. Being the captain or not, I don't think it bothers him. I don't think it's something that he's after. I think that he just wants to go out there and perform and become part of a winning team. And that's the most important team. Who's captain and who isn't in this club at the moment isn't the big issue.
No, actually, at Red United Devil has sent us a message saying Paul Pogba can still be a leader on the pitch with or without the captain's armband. Thanks, by the way. There's So many messages coming in for you guys. Ryan Kennedy has one here. Rio is the definition of a captain, a leader on and off the pitch. So you were a captain at Leeds. You were in your early 20s. When you went to United, I know you were captain for the Champions League final in 2008, but you were never the official sort of club captain under Sir Alex. Was that something that you wanted? Did you want that seal of approval from a man like Sir Alex to come to you and say,
I didn't need it. I didn't need it. I think that I wasn't someone who needed that to be able to shout at people. I was a shouter. I was an organiser. I was once someone at the back who, if you played in midfield in front of me, you'd hear me. I'd be trying to move you about. If you played up front, me and Wazzy used to argue all the time during the game, half-time, because I'd scream at him, he'd scream at me. In training ground, if we were losing, I didn't think people were putting it in, I'd scream and shout. And I just think you need people like that in training. It didn't matter whether I had the armband or not. I'd wear it a lot if someone was injured or whatnot. But I wasn't there to be just, I've got to wear the armband to be the captain. I wanted to win. I was obsessed with winning, and that was it.
Yeah, I've never met a person in my life in football that was desperate to be captain, you know, or upset that they weren't captain and somebody else was. Everybody knew that the most important thing about it was, you know, getting behind everybody, helping your teammates out, you know, at times, helping the captain out times when he had a bad game. It wasn't this thing that you were desperate to be captain. Of course, it was a little bit of kudos to lead your team out. Of course it is. And it's a very proud moment, but it wasn't a thing that you were upset about if you weren't captain and somebody else was. All you worried about was playing, helping your team, you know, to win games. I played for England with Martin Keown, and he was one of the most vocal around. One of the most vocal, whether he played or not, whether he is. And it was brilliant because he was, you know, dying for the cause. But he wasn't captain. It might have been Tony Adams, his teammate at Arsenal. But it's that belief that you want to get behind everybody and help somebody out to get to the final thing. And the final thing was winning the game. That's all that mattered.
But to be fair to Rio, there can be some really annoying responsibilities that come along with being the official club captain, by the way.
How political
Organising
is it?
Bonuses and, you know, PFA meetings and there's some stuff that you'd rather miss.
It shouldn't be political, Jake. Political in what way?
You're sort of trying to juggle the desires of the manager with the players, and the manager sort of telling you what the messages he wants to the players, or unhappy players coming to you saying, let's speak to the manager for me.
Well, it shouldn't be like that. I don't think it's necessarily your job as captain to speak to the manager about other players. You'd think if you had a problem, you'd come and speak to the manager yourself. That's how I would perceive it. I don't know now what goes on in the dressing room, but that shouldn't be a role for you as captain to get involved with club politics. Not at all. Your job is to win games and gather your teammates round and win games together. Nothing else.
The best teams don't need one leader.
Yeah, of course.
They need people in there when there's a given moment in a game or in the training ground or wherever they are as a squad, that there's people in there willing to pull people up and say, listen, take responsibility for your actions, what you're doing.
I remember you telling me that when new players would come to United, I said, who was responsible for explaining the way United were? And you were like, all of
everybody.
Us. And if someone came in at half-time and they were celebrating being in the lead, you were like, we don't celebrate winning games, we celebrate trophies here.
Yeah, and you don't get carried away. But within great changing rooms, there's a captain who wears the armband, but there's probably about 4 or 5 lieutenants in there as well that are shaping the way
while we're here, you look at N'Golo Kante. I don't know the man, but he seems to be one of the most shy people we've ever met. Yeah, he's one of the most influential when he plays football. He's just won the World Cup. He's won all kinds of awards. Absolute incredible footballer. Yet arguably doesn't say anything. It just shows that sometimes, as Rio rightly said, there's different leaders. There's shouters, there's moaners, there's pointers, and there's people who just go out and give 10 out of 10 performances week in, week out for club and country.
Interesting. And loads of comments coming in. Michael says, there's no leader in the Man United team. I miss the days of Vidic and Rooney.
Who?
Zigic.
Did he play for Man United, Vidic?
Good job that you never make a mistake. Luca on Facebook
mistakes all the time.
You are. Luca on Facebook says, look at Sergio Ramos at Real Madrid. He inspires his teammates. Ryan Davis on Facebook says that Ramos is the best captain. He leads the team, he scores goals. And Adam says, I think Milner should be captain for Liverpool. Does more and is more of a leader. And Mickey finally says, captain should be like Vieira, Keane and Gerrard. I knew that name would come up at some point. OK, thanks ever so much for joining us. All the people on Facebook, all the people on Twitter. Don't just have Premier League Tonight as this one-off for 10 minutes. Come and join us every Saturday on BT Sport between 8 and 9. There's plenty more conversation. After the break, we're going to be talking about Manchester United. But first, here's some brilliant work happening in the community, courtesy of the BT Sport Premier League Disability Initiative involving Aston Villa's Mila Jedinik. We'll see you after the break. Thanks. Lovely to have you with us. The third part of Premier League tonight is going to focus on Manchester United, but first, plenty more questions and comments still coming in on captaincy. James says, English football puts too much emphasis on captaincy. Leaders lead. You don't need an armband to do that. David Denton on Facebook.
Watching the show, was he?
Apparently. The modern game has evolved from having captains. You need leadership all over the pitch, says David. And Stephen on Twitter, every team needs a leader by example, someone who you can rely on when it gets difficult. And Raja says, Steven Gerrard, in my opinion, the greatest captain in the Premier League era, dragged average players to levels above their natural ability purely by playing alongside him. Just quickly on the Steven Gerrard point, people often say he wasn't particularly vocal. So what made him such a good captain then in that Liverpool dressing room? What did
He was brilliant.
So his
In the
performances,
history, well,
not
I think
what
the
he was...
performances, yeah, definitely. He scored in every single cup final I think Liverpool have played in, or arguably most of them. Semi-finals, finals. And
Rather than shouting and bawling.
Yeah. I mean, Liverpool's history is long and very, very successful. And he's one of the greatest players they've ever had. So, I mean, the fact that he's on the pitch and, you know, as I said, in big moments, he was there all the time. You could count on him single-handedly. I think in that dressing room where Stephen was the leader in how he played, he had someone like Jamie Carragher behind him who was very, very vocal. Right. You know, probably Roy Keane-esque, shouting at people, demanding more from them. Where Stephen would probably give, you know, a couple of words, but then he'd go out and be the best player on the field all the time.
OK. We're now going to turn our attention to Manchester United. We should talk in a moment, but first, here's Mark's thoughts.
To go to West Ham and park the bus from minute one, to play so defensive, is a disgrace to the Manchester United badge. And Jose Mourinho can come out with little clever comments about I played Martial because everyone says Sanchez is bad. Martial, Pogba and Lukaku played in a team that was an attacking team from an attacking sense that would be starved of oxygen. You put Messi in that team and he would have played poor. We had, you know, such a defensive approach against West Ham to park the bus from minute one. It's disgraceful. And Jose Mourinho is culpable, and somebody high up in that club needs to make a decision. They won't do it. With Moyes and Van Gaal, we didn't get rid of them until it was mathematically impossible to finish in the Champions League, and I don't think we'll do it again. But the manager's trying to score points. He's taking pops at people again, and the blame is on him. You play Scott McTominay at centre-back, you're going to lose. You defend against West Ham, you're going to lose. There's no one to blame other than the manager today, and you can be Mourinho in or out. I think that's irrelevant because I think he's here to stay, but that's unacceptable.
I think he's hurting about as much as you.
Yeah, there's a lot of points there that I agree with. I think even the team selection today, I think we spoke about the consistency of team selection hasn't been there for Man United, so you can't build relationships on the pitch. But even playing centre midfielders in defensive positions, he's done it 3 times this year, and 3 times they've conceded 3 goals. So that tells you one thing. But listen, at the end of the fans are frustrated. You can see it in the guy there who's talking in the video, and it's a shame to see it. But I spoke so much earlier with Scholesy and yourself at the game. Something's got to give at some point.
Yeah.
So
when is that?
He was very articulate, that gentleman who spoke there, Mark, was it? And you can feel his frustration. It's a mess at the moment at Manchester United, and maybe in a weird sort of way, today was a good result because it's highlighted what an absolute. I use the word mess again because it's come into my mind. That is going on at this club. This was a club that, you know, was always a step above everybody else or wanted to be. You know, that not a bad word came out, not a bad word seeped out to the press. It's like a pantomime at the minute. They are in the press for the wrong reasons every single minute. I know it's good copy because it's Manchester United, and I felt sorry for him, and I feel sorry for poor Paul Scholes, who has to watch Manchester United perform so bad in the last couple of years and has to comment on it. But they have to do something, and maybe today is the turning point.
It's only
Sanchez
a good
not
day
there.
if they do something, isn't it?
Well,
it's
exactly.
Only a good
And maybe today is the one time, because I know there's been bad times in the last couple of years and the way they've played, but today, with the circus around them, seems to be the point, that's the tipping point today. Sanchez not there, players playing in all the wrong positions, the midfield being bereft of any pace and any genuine, creativity.
Right.
It just
So
looks
what
as
has
if
to
they're a
change
million
then?
miles away.
If today is the landmark day where something has to change, what is that something?
Well, I said it earlier, that's for the hierarchy of the football club to decide. That's their job. You're put in charge of the football club to manage it and run it right.
But if you're in the hierarchy, what would you do?
I'm not in a hierarchy. It's
I'm
not
not saying sack the manager. That's too
So
easy
what then?
to see
I'm
that.
not saying you should.
But
but
they need to
what-
get
what-
together. They
Listen,
need to
I
say,
think the
look,
big-
nothing seeps out of this club. There's no social media. There's no shenanigans going on. Keep the press away from the grounds. When Jose sits in front of the press, he's nice and charming, like he was in previous years when he was a manager. And the club goes on absolute lockdown, and then we
But
work
who
hard.
drives that though?
But what I said, the narrative of the club, especially this year from the pre-season, unfortunately hasn't been football. It's been everything but football. It's been about everything off the field, with individual players, with spats, with little mini wars within the club. That's not right. That's not how a successful football club runs. You've got to make sure that you've got players in there that there's a harmony within the squad. There's an ambience.
But who's going to bring that?
But there's a harmony being built. We look at Chelsea today. The ambience in that squad is positive. It's happy for one reason: Sarri. That's what a manager's in there to create. He's in there to create an environment that's a happy place to work. And that then breeds positivity, and that is a platform, a foundation for success. And now we talk about little details, like social media. I'll be honest with you, if I was a manager of a football club, I'd shut down social media. Because that's a problem that keeps coming out. It's something that all the fans are talking about. It's something that the manager talked about on the training pitch in front of the cameras. Shut it down.
They can't shut it down and use it at the same time.
Listen, the best.
They have their own webpage.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you,
Twitter
you do it.
accounts.
You control it. Look at LeBron James. LeBron James goes into playoff mode. Don't use social media. That's telling the fans, whatever happens, I'm serious about my game. There needs to be messages put out there that can portray a seriousness, a professionalism, a desire to win. And they might not be big things, but these little blocks amount to big things. And that needs to be set in stone. And there's one person who sets that in stone. That's the manager.
But is he going to do that? Is he going to change his approach now and say, right?
The issue with Jose that I've seen at various clubs that he's been at, when that momentum starts to go a certain way, he's never had the ability to bring it back. So we can sit here and go, he's still the guy for the job because we know how great a manager he is. But, it happened here at Chelsea, it happened in Madrid, and it's happened, obviously, at United, where he's singling people out. It started in the summer, with the tour. Then it was Luke Shaw's time. Then it was Martial's turn. Then it was, I think, Rashford got his little douse. Now the two centre-halves have been getting it. How many more are kind of getting heavily publicly criticised, and still, which you do get as a player, but at the same time, he's not getting a tune out of any of them by doing that.
Almost an ultimatum now from someone like Ed Woodward to say, look, you have to do something different because the loser in all of this is Manchester United. All of the stats say Man United are a mid-table side. The table, their 10th, tells us Man U are a mid-table side.
I wouldn't blame Joe. I wouldn't lay everything on Jose's.
No, but someone somewhere has to make a decision that it changes. I don't know. I don't know who that person is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who that is, but Jose has to play a bigger part. The players certainly have to play a bigger part. These are the players who finished second in the league last year. Second, the 10th, and they look a million miles away from what they are. Pogba looks a million miles away from the player he shows in a shirt of Juventus and a shirt for France. Alexis Sanchez looks like someone completely different. They've spent money on quality players. They can't blame the manager all the time. Formations. In the end, they have to express themselves. They need to be confident. Probably they need a pat on the back at times from the manager to say, keep on going. But this is a collective umbrella. You can't just suddenly say, Jose, get rid of him. Pogba, get rid of him because, they're arguing with each other. This is Manchester United you're talking about. They're an absolute mess.
He's definitely right, Maka, in that it's not just Jose, and we don't want to. I don't want to sit here and
it's not
sound
about
like
the manager.
It's all about Jose and just the manager, because it's a two-way thing. The players have to go out there and put what he's putting down into practice. But I go back to today's performance, and I go back to performance we've seen in the last year or so. It's about a work ethic. When you walk into a football club, whether it's a Sunday League team, whether it's a pub team, whether it's a Premier League team, the first thing on the tin that needs to be done is to work hard. Before you talk about football ability, before you talk about who can score goals, etc., you've got to earn the right to play. It's an old saying that people say, but you have to. It doesn't change. That ain't going to change. That's the same thing before you do anything, you work hard and you make sure you put the other team under pressure so that when you come in, no one can sit there and say to you, oh, you didn't put it in today. That's an embarrassment. If someone said to me in training, let alone in a match, you didn't work as hard as you can do today, you're not putting it in, I would be mortified. I'd be sitting there going home, looking at me thinking, I'm cheating myself. I'm not even cheating, I'm cheating my teammates. I'm cheating the people that pay my wages. I think it's a disgrace for someone to be able to sit there and call you out for your work ethic. As a football player, as an athlete, I don't agree with that. It shouldn't happen. And so the players have to take responsibility if that is happening.
Well, it is.
Yeah, you can take someone having a bad game. We all have bad games. But if you try your utmost and you work hard and you run and you fight and you have a bad game, you give a few passes away, whatever, you can get away with that. But when you're just on the periphery, and they didn't look bothered today, did they? They didn't look bothered at all. And
then you come and watch the quality of football we've seen here, and it lays it bare, doesn't it? Absolutely.
And the big thing that's missing compared to this, what we just looked here at Manchester United today up at the London Stadium, is confidence. Yeah. And the confidence, no matter how good you are, is a huge factor in performing well.
Well, we'll see how it pans out. It sort of has that feeling of a bit of an end game, as you say. It feels like a day where something has to happen.
You want it to be, don't you?
No, I don't. That's
for the story, like Jake.
Talking of the story, senior United officials have denied they've contacted Zinedine Zidane this evening.
Go on, Zizou.
He's learning English, you know.
I know he's learning English, I believe.
OK, right, make sure you join us for the final part of Premier League tonight. We've got plenty more to discuss up next.
He speaks French, that's OK.
There you go. In the final part, we will discuss players' contracts in the light of the Aaron Ramsey situation at Arsenal. We'll see you.